You know how sometimes life doesn't make any sense at all? You expected one thing to happen, and life delivered something else. As human beings, we are sense making creatures. We want to make sense out of everything. And when life doesn't make sense, there's an internal external mismatch. Because how we make sense of the world is through our inner reality. I have stories, I have ideas, thoughts, beliefs, plans, and I expect life to go a certain way. And when it doesn't, I feel like life doesn't make sense, especially if there's something huge that happens in life that's completely not what I expected. So let's say someone wants to become a professional athlete and they're getting feedback from their coaches, from the people around them, that they're getting there. They have talent, they show promise, they work hard. And eventually, when they get to a certain stage, it doesn't work out. Other people are better than them, faster, smarter, whatever it is. And so they, quote unquote, fail. And life doesn't make sense because they've built their whole identity around being a professional athlete. So it's the idea we have of how life is and how life should be and what we expect that helps us make sense of the world. And when life surprises you in a big way, like someone who has invested maybe their whole life into becoming a professional athlete, and they don't get that, when that surprise is sufficiently big, you feel like life doesn't make sense because you have to construct a new story, a new metaphor within yourself. It's interesting how that works. So instead of falling into despair and thinking that there's something wrong, life doesn't make sense. Now it's normal to experience grief, anxiety, even depression for a bit because the identity and story you've built up has crumbled and life has shown you that there's something else in store for you. So instead of thinking that life is against you, bring some curiosity to it. Start to wonder, what is life calling out of you? Begin to observe, experiment, and adapt. And you can also explore your internal stories, your internal metaphors. When life doesn't make sense, you can ask, what's it like when life doesn't make sense? So to give you an example, if life doesn't make sense to me, maybe I ask, what's it like? And then I get into a metaphor, a story. Because my mind might say, it's like there's a storm around me, a storm of thoughts that I can't grasp. I can't focus in on anything because everything is in flux. And so then I can go on, keep asking, okay, so it's in a flux, what else? What else is going on? I'm sitting down, trying to grasp my thoughts, trying to organize everything so it makes sense. And I can go deeper into sense. What is sense? And what's it like? And then I go into what sense means to me in my story. And I can say that sense is when I can see clearly. So this is an image, an internal representation of an image of how I see the world. And I can go deeper into that and go, so when I'm seeing clearly, then what happens? And I can say, then I'm living my life. I can live my life. And when I'm living my life, what then? Then I'm just flowing, being in touch with life. So it's the same kind of questions. What happens? What next? What's it like? These are ways of exploring your story, your metaphor, your way of making sense. So when I'm just flowing with life, what happens? I'm in touch with my internal guidance. I sense a power, a reassurance within me that I can trust. I don't have to always have a clear image of things, because I can let life and my body guide me. Because even when life doesn't make sense, I'm not aware of all the variables in life. And so I don't know where this will lead. All I can do is be curious, be open, and see how things develop. And exploring my story, my metaphor, how I arrange the world internally helps with that, because it helps me be more aware of where I can get stuck and where I can find inner reassurance, clarity. So it's not that life doesn't make sense, it's your idea of life, how you organize your idea, your framework of life that is clashing with life. And instead of saying that life doesn't make sense, what if you became curious about your story of life, your idea of life, and what needs to change? Because sometimes our plans don't work out because that's not the life that's meant for us. There's a lot of suffering in trying to pursue a path that's not for you. You'll meet obstacles, adversity, challenges, more than usual. But when you begin to ask, okay, what's life calling out of me? What do I feel drawn to do? That's when things get interesting. So change is challenging. When life doesn't make sense, it's asking you to change your internal stories, your internal way of making sense of life. And that's challenging, but it's rewarding, because when you adapt and experiment and change, you're more in tune with reality, and that's when you can make some interesting things happen. So that's all for this one. Like, subscribe, it helps, and I'll see you in the next one.